back, everyone, to another episode of Paranormal Roundtable. In tonight's episode, we'll be getting into some very ancient and fascinating beliefs held by the Choctaw as well as other Native American tribes on the primordial origins of Earth, of Bigfoot, of cryptids, of humanity, as well as an equally intriguing and horrifying ancient belief of Earth's first predator, known as the cosmic spider. We got all kind of really cool stuff for you. We like to bring you every kind of perspective that we can, and that's exactly what we're doing with our wonderful guests Jerry Williams and Lead Tracker E, also known as Ella. And check out their latest book on Amazon called Predator Bigfoot and the Spiritual Warrior's Path. And as always, we have the Patreon, which is patreon.com/PRT podcast. So if you like what we do and you want to support it, consider becoming a patron. And if you have paranormal experiences that you'd like to share, you're not alone. You can do so at joshturner@prtpodcast.com. Once again, that email address is joshturner@prtpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. That's the easiest and most effective way you can help us out on YouTube. And with all that being said, let's get started.
And do you guys think that the DNA, now I believe this, I believe that the Anunnaki were here. I believe that's what they were, like the fallen. I'm not going to get into a whole bunch of that, but they originally orchestrated this. And I believe that what you say about their DNA, I believe that they tapped into that DNA, that predator DNA. That's crazy. That predator DNA. I'm looking at some photos here, folks. It's wow. There's something in the middle of it too.
There's three there.
You can
three
see,
faces in one. And so they all saw something different, plus that they're all at different angles also.
So even
and
with
even with the fear, tell them about the kittens, would you?
But like with the face and the skinwalkers and things like that, and the shapeshifters is what they call them. But it's a predator Bigfoot that looks like a bear on this side, a human in the middle, or a wolf on this side, or a pig on this side. So when it drops a 4, it may look like a bear, but if it looks at you, it may look like a man. If it goes the other way, it may look like a wolf. And if it stands up, it throws everybody off. But it's just a multiple DNA on one head. Now there are what they call the human skinwalkers, and those are people who's actually ate human flesh. Mm-hmm. And once you eat human flesh, or when someone does that, the mixture of someone else's blood in the body, it doesn't mix. We're not supposed to be eating anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're getting two, and it could be different bloods, the blood types in one body, which will confuse the body, confuse the mind. It'll make you sick. It'll basically turn the mind into poison. And
which is a Wendigo.
Yeah, and those are the only, like the pharaohs, the real ones, not the country people. You
mean not the ones on motorbikes running around?
Not the
people
Ike.
are seeing them, and not Ike's people.
The real pharaohs are the ones who are the cannibalistic, and they mate with Bigfoots, and that's why you get more of a human look. And that's the only way they can be around a Bigfoot. That's the only way a Bigfoot won't attack them.
Is if they're a hybrid.
People that say they're living with the Bigfoots, they're not. If they're living with the Bigfoot might come around here and there, but if they're living with the Bigfoots, they would have been. They wouldn't be allowed. They would be either eaten or yeah.
I got a story. I don't know what you guys would think of this, and this is very interesting. You guys are talking about this. There was a guy. He was Ukrainian. It's weird. He was actually Russian and Ukrainian, which I know they're at war, but there's a lot of people that are mixed, Russian, Ukrainian. And his grandfather fought as a Ukrainian. He fought for Germany during World War II. I don't pass judgment on, and this isn't about politics, because the Soviet Union was a very oppressive regime. And so I guess when the Germans came, it was like, what does it matter? I mean, these people are going to kill us, maybe we have a chance with these people. But anyway, when they were pressing deep into Russia, he said, my grandfather told me an amazing story. And this guy's a little bit older than me. But he told it like very well. And I don't think he's told the story before, but that's the only story he has. But he said his grandfather came across these, what they thought were wild people, but they looked monkey-like, almost like, if he had to describe the way his grandfather described it, And the way he described it to me, I would say they were like humans bred with Bigfoot. And that the German soldiers thought that they were some sort of like a weird creature that the Soviets had been. And then it came out later on that the Soviets really were working on programs like that. And the Germans, of course, you're not going to really get their side of it because they lost. But there was a lot of people saying, hey, they were coming across weird chimeric type creatures, vampiric creatures, werewolf-looking creatures, Bigfoot creatures. And I got some of this firsthand. There was a girl that used to work for us. She was Czech. She was from the Czech Republic. And she said that her grandmother said the same thing, that her husband marched off to war, and he came back. And they were like, they had all kinds of weird creatures and things, going into the trenches and attacking people. And they would bayonet them, and then they'd look at them and they'd be like, what is this? What is this thing? And of course, people, what is that? Oh, it looks like an oni, dude.
And so if you look at one side, it looks like a deer. And if you look at another side, it's more.
Check that out. I'm getting to look at these pictures, folks. I know that you're not seeing them.
And those are eyewitness sketches.
This is a sketch, right?
Yeah. We seen these out in the field. We knew what they were, but and that's why we always carry weapons.
Well, heck yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, you see that thing?
Two kinds of weapons: armor of God and the physical.
That's right.
The physical and the spiritual weapon.
God, and then
Absolutely.
you go out armed.
Yeah.
Another question too. Like, what do you guys? Now we talked about okay, maybe these things were originally engineered by an ancient civilization who put themselves up as God. We know they weren't, but the slave race that was made as man thought that they were gods. But do you think that there's tampering going on now, like from governments?
Absolutely.
So that's
they'll weaponize anything, and that's why they try so hard to cover it up, because these are getting ready for that great and terrible day of the Lord when they're fully released, when the restrainer is lifted.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they're all going to come out, unless we give them legal right now for some reason, some way that, because they're under spiritual laws too. They just like they have to listen to the name of Jesus. They can't just attack unless they're given a reason to attack.
A riot.
A riot.
Yeah,
and I don't mean by that it's somebody's fault. It just means something happened there that particular one could do something. But if
gifting will do that too.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's what I can't stand that. They're over here telling you to give.
They're going to give
them apples.
They are getting people
and
killed.
Tobacco. And I had somebody he's on a big show, and he made me so mad because this woman up in Washington had her little grandson. He saw one by a creek or a river. Remember that, Tony? And they told us this story, and I think Armando was the one that originally fielded it. And this woman said, "Well, the individual said that it's okay. They won't hurt you. They're just like big, giant chipmunks out there."
Oh yeah, Armando told me this.
Just like a person with a museum that we know this is some weighty stuff. You can't afford to be wrong on this. The stakes are too high.
This is a child, too.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to, with these platforms, too, we reach a lot of people. We're responsible for what we're telling people out there. And the ones that are saying to go out and gift, and these are another form of human, and some are good and some are bad.
They're
going to be responsible for those deaths of those people.
Well, probably already are. I mean, people go missing all the time. I'm not David Paulides is the most famous, of course, but Steve Stockton's written about it, and of course Josh Anocchio talks about it, and on their shows, these big, huge shows, and they talk about people going missing all the time, and not just in the national parks, but just in the wild. And I know that you could get turned around. I know that happens, and I know that you could lose your way. But it happens in an inordinately large amount of time. There's too many disappearances to be coincidence. I think it's very weird.
And they can disorient you. They can make you get lost. Yeah. That's happened to me a couple of times with, say, if I'm walking from this wall to that wall and I have never turned around and I have no awareness of it, but suddenly I'm walking from that wall to this wall, but I didn't turn around. That happened to me twice they're in the big thicket where we closed that portal.
Is so creepy.
Yeah.
Oh
it is something that a lot of this information and even the questions, the answers are in that book. We also talk about the mind protection technique, and that's also in the book.
Is this your first book?
No, it's sixth book, I think.
Sixth book.
Yeah.
I knew the answer, but I wanted
First
the
published one.
I know, but I'm being a good radio host. I'm like, is this your first? That was a dumb question. I'm like, do you drink water? I mean, I find it watery. I don't know if it's good. And,
do you believe in Bigfoot?
You're talking about Bigfoot a lot. Do you believe in it? No, that was kind of an amateurish. I should know better. But yeah, audience, I'm not trying to act like you're dumb. I was a dumb question. Josh Turner admits when he's wrong. I admit it. You can ask my sister wife. She always tells me, hey, you know what? You're being wrong. And I just say that's, but you know what it is? I'm typically perfect, but on this particular occasion, I was just a little bit wrong. Okay. But I reserve the right to be perfect.
I thought I was wrong once, but I was mistaken.
but I was mistaken, right? So yes, obviously this is not your first book, and you can get your books on Amazon, right?
No. They're all unpublished. I had the first 3 stored at the Choctaw Nation Cultural Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that if anybody calls for these books, I give it to them for free.
Yeah. Yeah, you told me that.
And there were some people who were, arguing and stuff like that and said, oh, these books ain't real. I said, yeah. I said, they're unpublished, but I could tell you where to get them. Mm-hmm. And they were calling me a fraud and all this. And so finally, they said, well, I can't find them on the internet. I can't find them. I said, I told you they're unpublished. They're not. You're not going to find them there. I said, but I did give the tribe 3 of the first 3 books. The first book is called The Legend of Love of Prophecy. The second book is The Warrior Views with an S, The Spiritual. And the third one was, the fourth one was the completion of time, the Aztec Sunstone. I'm not sure if that's the third or fourth one. But I had those stored at the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, and these people were, ridiculing and telling me I'm a liar and everything. So I even gave them the phone number to the cultural center and said, the head director there, just let him know that I said you could have the books. And so he called to the tribe, and the tribe said, yeah, we have those books. But you're going to have to get permission from him, and he's going to have to call us, and we'll release them to you. So
okay, can anybody go get them, or
no? They're not there anymore. The tribe said that their computer system went down, and only my books were lost.
What?
Yeah,
isn't that funny?
That is weird.
But this person, and there was like 2 or 3 at different times who come in, and they were all calling me a liar. I said, well, there's the books. They're there. And so the tribe had told them that if you get permission, we'll release them to you. So now all these people who are calling me a liar and heckling me and everything like that, now they have to ask for my permission. So I said, well, if you want to ask for my permission, go ahead. And they did. And I said, no. But you know where they're at.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but this book is on Amazon.
Yes.
I know, because
So it's our first published book.
It's your first published book. Yeah, because you had told me that you had written other books. Yeah, and I didn't know exactly, but I knew you could get this one. I knew that you could get this one on Amazon, so because I just got it. And it's so weird because when we were on the phone, they had just delivered it. And here's the funny thing too: the girl that delivered it, she was so nice. Her name was Aria, and she brought it, and she was a really friendly African-American girl, and we hit it off. I was on the phone talking to my business partner. Anthony was sitting next to me. We were doing a schedule. We had a scheduling problem, but she was so friendly, and she's like giving me my package. She's like, oh, but something good. And I was like, I do too. And then when I brought it in, I didn't know because I thought it was my wife's coffee can, so I wasn't excited about it. I was like, whatever, And so I said, that's probably not the book because it just sounded like one thing. So I just left it sitting there. But anyway, I gave her my card and I said, check out the show. So shout out to her. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to check this out. I love this kind of stuff. And she saw the Bigfoot on there and everything. But then later my wife comes out there and she opens the box and she didn't even know the coffee can had been sitting in the cart for like a week. And she goes, what is this? And I'm like, did I order that? You didn't even know if that's what you wanted. I thought it was in the cart. And I said, I was like, I don't care. I'm just waiting for Jerry's book. And she goes, you mean this? And she holds it up and I go, yes. And I was excited. I was like, yeah, okay. So I got to thumb through it a little bit. I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited about it. Cause it's everything that we've been talking about. And I love to read. I'm a reader. And so authors are
You
like.
don't think all books are fiction?
I know books are all fiction and they don't learn you nothing, man. But you know, because that's what dumb people do is then read them books. But
Gotta get some learning.
I don't read a book unless it's a pop-up.
Yeah.
and they better pop up and then I'll throw it in the trash. Or those greeting cards. I don't know.
I want it to pop up and punch me, so I stopped reading.
So the book came in and I was excited and I was thinking, you know, I love to read and I love to read people's, you know, and after having the conversation with you guys, I was like, it's going to be fun to me, you know? So just like when I read Lyle's book, the last one, the Texas Bigfoot book, whatever, I sat down, I got interrupted about 30 times. And then finally I just closed the studies and I just read it cover to cover. And I do that every time David Weatherly comes out with a new book on the states. Like that's another thing too. Like David is like really, he's a good friend of mine.
He's just throwing them out too.
Oh, and he's doing
always
a good job.
Yeah, they're always really well quality. And
I liked Aaron Deese's book too, even though it came out the same as mine. Everybody's like, "Oh, are y'all competing?" I'm like, "Heck no."
No.
I wish everybody was writing a book. Not everybody, people that knew what they were talking about was writing a book. Because a lot of people write books, and you're thinking, "Yeah, I'd like you not to," but that's my opinion, you know. And then people, you know, will announce that they wrote a book, and you're kind of like, But I was excited. You know, so folks, I hope you go out and you check it out. Now, let me ask you this: when we're getting back on the spider thing. And we kind of got off track a little bit, and that's my fault. But the millions of years, like how many millions of years are you talking about with this spider thing?
When the first centipede, the first, the crustaceans, the round ones, it goes back.
Trilobites.
Yeah. And then the dinosaurs are a hybrid of the spider also. You have like the ram. If you look at a dinosaur, T-Rex, you know, you've got a ram, you've got the tail of the spider. I mean, the serpent, the claws are the predator DNA. The skin, the kind of grayish, which is the like the serpent skin or the out texture. But all of the Ice Age was caused because of the puncture, and it's coming into a natural warm air. But the water that's outside here, what people call space, it's not air, it's water. So when the world was turned upside down, and now cold, dark, murky, salty water, because we never had salt water. We never had oceans. We never had seas. It's all fresh water here. And when this happened, this is when the salt water came in and started flooding. And we, at that time, was thinking that it was coming downward, but the world was turned upside down and backwards, so it was actually coming upward. And so that's also where that song comes, Itsy Bitsy Spider goes up the water spout. Naturally, it would have went down, but in the song, it's going up. And the only way you could do that is we're upside down.
Yeah, and people are going to think that's a silly nursery rhyme, but let me tell you something. Like, who in their right mind is going to say the spider goes up the water spout? The spider is not going to be able to crawl up a slick water spout. There's no footing. So it's symbolic.
Another form of oral history.
Exactly. And that story and that song, people will say, well, it was written in English, this and that. But no, it always comes from another language from somewhere and another language from somewhere and another language somewhere. Just like the Billy Goat's Gruff.
Yep.
That is actually a Germanic story that came from their interactions with Celts and Northern Europeans. And then they got it from somewhere. And then they got it from somewhere. And they got it from somewhere. And all the way to Samaria, you know. And so when people want to argue with me about, oh, well, there's a legend that comes from these people, I'm like, and where did they get it from? There's nothing new under the sun. It says it in the Bible over and over again. And I'm not like overly religious, but I have a personal relationship with Christ. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you know, Zoroastrians actually were the Magi that followed the stars to find out where Christ was at. They would have been astronomers / astrologers because they really didn't have astronomy back then. So you wonder, like, where did they get the technology? Because even magic is a form of technology we don't understand.
That's a book of Enoch.
Exactly. And they actually followed the star the Christ child. Now, and I remember this because when y'all were little, Tony, I think you and Seth were asking me, that's my little cousin, and they were asking me like, where did I think maybe it was your sister. Might have been your sister. She asked me how the Magi found Jesus, and I had to explain to her. And people don't know that they were Zoroastrians. So there was something that predated Christianity. And then you got these other offshoot weird religions, like the Yazidi, who believe in the peacock god, and they believe that he would be what we consider the devil, but the God of this world forgave him. And then there's like the God of this world, and there's the infinite God, the true creator God, who's not the counterfeit. So there are so many multiple stories of creation and how this place came to be. And a lot of it talks about there's like this offshoot world, which is what we are. We're like an offshoot universe. But if you were to look at it from like what you're saying, all the planets are like these drops of cocooned, whatever. Think about it. If we were all just sitting in some bathwater, in a bathtub, and and we're just small little, whatever, insignificant. Eventually we're going to go down the drain, and that's the black hole, because we're so small and tiny that we're fitting inside of another world that's inside of another world. Because when I was little, I filled up the sink with water, and I was a precocious child, and I asked for things. My dad said I was weird. My mom said I was just, inquisitive. But I would ask for like a telescope. I wanted a microscope, and I wanted a chemistry set. With the chemistry set, I actually blew up the yard. I did that. My mom has told Tony that story. I destroyed the fire ants. I got rid of them, but made humongous ditches. And my dad was like, "What did you do?" And I'm like 9, and I'm like, "I got rid of fire ants, and you're mad."
So you're why we can't get children's chemistry kits anymore.
Exactly. Right. I mean, it was supposed to be him making little like volcanoes, and he turned it into Normandy.
And my mom would have told that story to them. We were over there. We were eating. I never forget when you were there. My mom had made fideo. And she liked when she was alive, she liked to cook, and she made that story, and she told that story. She liked to tell it, and I blew up the yard because of the fire ants. And so then my dad comes and he's all mad, and I'm all indignant, like, "Well, I stopped the fire ants, and he's like, "Yeah, you destroyed the yard, but well, don't buy me a chemistry set, whatever. Dan, it's your fault.
I'm a scientist, Dad.
Yeah, I'm a scientist in training, So I asked
believe in science.
I believe this is how this works."
You just said, "You're welcome."
Yeah, you're welcome, and walk off, and I did all kinds of crazy stuff, and I had an ant farm when I was little, and I would watch them for hours, very relaxing.
Fascinated with how things work.
Yeah, and you see how they have their own little ecosystem and their own little world. They're not even aware of you. They don't know who you are. They don't stop and look at you and go, "What are you?" If you were to drive down this highway right here, and there was an ant mound right there, and it's half of it's below the earth, and there's the top, whatever, they would have no idea that there's even a highway there, much less people driving on it. And I feel like that's kind of how we are. If you were to take a bottle of water, and there's all these germs and microbes and everything else in there, and I did this one time when I was little, I just sat there staring at it for days because I wanted sea monkeys. And so I had an Aquaman or a Green Lantern comic, and I sent off a little thing to get the sea monkeys. What a disappointment that was. They actually came. They sent them to you, 6 weeks later, you forget about it. And you're riding your bike, and your mom's like, "Hey, you got something in the mail." I'm like, "What is it?" And I was like, "It's a little packet." And so me and my sisters and my mom were like, we put it in water, and 2 days they're dead. And then you're like, wow. So what I did, I took a little bit of that water, and this is true. I'm telling you a true story. I put a little bit in a glass jar, like a Sprite 7-Up bottle. And I sat there on the counter, and I watched what it did. And an entire weird ecosystem evolved before my eyes. And I took that and I took drops of that water, and there shouldn't have been anything in there because everything was dead, right? But I looked at it under a microscope, and I was interested in what I saw. I saw things moving around. So my friend's dad had a big, powerful microscope, and we looked at it, and you could see like life creating, it was life. like bacteria forming, and then there was mold and stuff that was eating it and things like that. And so that was very fascinating for me. I just remember that I was like 8 years old. And I thought, this is how we are. So the spiders that came here could actually just be tiny little spiders that just invaded our tiny little world. You know what I mean? I'm not saying this is totally what I believe, but the possibility.
There are the real big ones that are bigger than planets, but the small ones are still bigger, at that time, bigger than us. And
that's like they're babies.
Yeah. But if you look in history and if anybody does look in history, you're going to see that, we were here. We still are. We always have been. But you'll also see that the arthropod age happened.
Arthropods, yeah.
Arthropod age happened. And then you got the millipedes, and then you got the dinosaurs. And if you look at it, it's all in line.
Yeah, for millions and millions, hundreds of millions of years.
Yeah.
And we were talking about earlier about how the things that came out that are just flat, and then they begin to grow, including humans or men.
Babies.
Also start out flat and then begin to form up.
Yeah, when conception happens, the baby is like a half surfboard. And then it starts to like fold out and form and come to look like a human. But it also started out flat. So when people talk about flat Earth and round Earth, and it's actually a living cosmic energy being, what we call Earth, but it did start off flat. Start off as a baby would, and then it started forming.
So it's growing.
And it took form, yeah.
So again, everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
Like I say about religion, it's like a star fell from the sky and everybody got a piece of it and said, I'm correct, look what I got. And I'm like, you're not done. There's a whole lot more to this whole puzzle, the puzzle pieces putting together. I think that's kind of what I've been doing on this show. I'm not tooting my own horn, but I am kind of a big deal, but I'm joking.
Hey,
but
you know what I mean? Recognized at the chocolates.
I did. The Lamb's Candy people were like, hey, yeah, I know you. And
you have arrived.
There's my moment of fame right there. I have made it. I am in the big time now, man. I got a free chocolate bar. Now, I was just thinking, though, like, if you look at everything in the guise of like what you're saying, we're all interconnected and we're all related, and everything was growing the way it was supposed to. Then there was this interference, right, from the spider, and this is, like you said, the Choctaw belief, right? This is how it goes. Okay, and then there was a
lot of tribes.
Yeah, a lot of tribes. Yeah. Okay, and so you said that one of the go ahead and explain how one of them pierced. Like it pierced?
Well, we was supposed to have our judgment time, our judgment day, which was the end of what they call the Mayan calendar. But even the Aztec sunstone is not Mayan. It's actually Mexican. It's Mexican symbols.
Okay.
And so it's actually a Mexican calendar. But in 2012 is when we were supposed to have the man-child birthed, and that's even in the Bible, of the man-child being birthed, the pains of a woman is going to be heard, and that's the birthing happening. But that didn't happen in 2012 only because of the spider that pierced the left eye of Earth or the man-child. It's still there right now. The piercing is still there. I've actually seen that piercing in the sky. I took a photo of it. It's actual looks like a big rock, pointed rock coming out of the sky. There's nothing, you don't see anything behind it because of the filament, or what we call the eye lens. So you can't see past that, but you can see what's came through. And it's a big, I even got a photo of a Chinese jet that took a picture of it. Looks kind of like a big stone in the sky. And that's why we live our lives a certain way, because we know judgment was already supposed to have happened. But until that piercing comes out or the birthing happens, the judgment is on hold. And so the demons, the devil, the bad people, they have to get everybody. So now they still have a little bit of hope of trying to not get judged, because what they're trying to do is make us all bad, make us all evil. And if that happens, then there's no judgment because everybody's the same.
Everybody's dead.
Yeah, everybody's dead.
Dead spiritually.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's a lot to digest. The spider thing, okay, that right there really freaks me out. That is the corruption. That's how sin entered the world, right? According to the legend. That would make sense because even if it was a serpent, like in the Bible, it talks about a serpent. I think that is a much later thing that happened. I really believe that. And I believe that Genesis was a terraformed thing. That's my belief. People say it's weird or whatever. Well, read. People don't like to read. They don't like them books, But I always believe this, that there was something sinister about spiders. I didn't give a crap. People used to try to tell me that all the time. And I used to date someone, and she was into she was into not arthropod. What's it called?
Arachnids.
Yeah, it was a type of bug etymology, and she was all into that. And she thought that they were so fascinating and amazing and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, don't bring it around me. I'm good. And my friend, I was talking about him earlier, Squid. His girlfriend had 2 tarantulas. And they would sleep above their heads on their headboard. And then one day they went to New Braunfels on a trip, and one of them crawled into the other side and ate the other one.
And the way a Bigfoot will tap on a window, a tarantula does the same thing. It's looking for a mate. So these people that think, they're just curious, which you hear so many Bigfoot so-called researchers saying they're not curious. They're looking for a mate. They're trying to get to that woman inside of there or that kid inside of there. Yeah. And when I say mate, I mean it in a rape kind of way. I don't mean a lover.
Yeah, and that is the key too.
A breeder.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to reproduce. They're not trying to have a good time and be your friend or whatever. Right. And I don't care. I just tell people all the time, I don't like spiders. I don't care. I know they're very important to the ecosystem.
No, they're not.
Dude, frogs could do the same job, okay? You don't have to have spiders.
Another thing, we've been told that some things took so long, but some of these catastrophes happened like boom, immediately.
Each time.
Instant petrification, instant.
Yeah, like with the woolly mammoth that they found that froze instantly. I said this thing froze like boom, like it happened like boom. It wasn't no long drawn out process.
There was some points in time to where we were overran by giants, overran by these arachnids, and Jesus and God had to step in, and sometimes He will do that to save, the children, and that's petrification that happened, and it happened that quick. And that stopped everything. There was a big tree, and the trees used to be huge. I mean, huge.
Yeah, because the oxygen levels were higher. Yeah.
And so in the history, we had to start cutting trees down because these spiders were still coming through, and they were using those big trees to come down. And that's where you get Devil's Tower and things in the Navajo areas. If you look at the mesas and things like that, it's all straight, it's all leveled out. I mean, we just had to cut everything we could down, the big ones, because these things were using them coming down, and people don't even really can fathom seeing at that time, gigantic spiders coming down from trees and eating everybody. But God does step in from time to time, and we are at that last cycle now. So that's why we always tell the truth. We know that any day judgment can happen since we're past that time. All of our trackers, we've already told each other goodbye. And that's one of our protocols also, to be a tracker. We have to say goodbye to each other because anything can happen out there. And even if we can't be thinking about our family out there, if we get in that situation because we're not thinking about what we're doing, what we need to do. So we make it a protocol to where we have to say goodbye to each other before we go out.
The Mayan, when you talk about the Mayan calendar, and I'm going to explain this to folks in case you don't understand what he's referring to, is the year Reed 1 was 2012. Now, what happened was the Mayans counted backwards. And at the end, in 2012, December 2012, they were supposed to end. I believe it was December 12th, 2012, right? It was supposed to end, and then it didn't. Now, here's my opinion on that. I believe it did, but I believe that is what CERN is doing, is trying to stave it off. The reason you would want to stave it off, and there's only one reason why, would be so that you have more time to do more deviant whatever you're doing. Like you said, make everybody evil. That runs in lockstep with what I've said this. This is something I've thought about a lot, and I believe that is a real possibility. 100%, I don't know, but maybe. The other thing I wanted to say is I was watching this show on Discovery Channel. It's old now, years ago, and who knows, with the Mandela Effect, also by CERN, brought to you by them. I will tell you this. There was this show that I watched, and it was talking about the future and what's going to happen. Like, and they were giving their ideas, which I'm sure they had a lot of fun with it because it was just people's imaginations. But they were saying, this is how the future is going to be in 10,000 years, in 100,000 years. Now, in 100,000 years, I remember this show, and I thought it was called like The Future is Wild or something. Don't quote me on that, but it was something like that on Discovery Channel. I remember that. And maybe one of the listeners out there could reach out to me. I'm sure you probably will, and you'll tell me. If I'm wrong, you'll correct me. But I know that one of the things that it said was 100,000 years is all it takes for everything, like everything in this studio, this plastic or metal, this metal, this plastic, all this stuff, to biodegrade and completely be gone and become minerals back into the earth. Right? It's all going to dissolve. So within 100,000 years, you will not even know that Austin was here. Everything will be gone back into the earth within 100,000 years, like biodegraded, right? So then if that's the case, so then that's what they were playing off of. They said then there's no more mankind. That was the whole idea. Ultimately, the creatures that would take over would be cephalopods, and that they would come out of the ocean. Now, they have 8 limbs, and they're very arachnid-like. And a lot of scientists don't even believe now that they are from here. They came later, a lot of people say, and they're very clever. Tony, we were talking with Anthony about this when we were at the Corpus with Zane, you, me, and Zane. We were telling Anthony about it. The curate, what do you call the people at the Corpus?
Curator, right?
Curators, whatever. We started talking to them about, and they were telling us about an octopus that was getting out of its enclosure. Mm-hmm. And this has happened at other aquariums. This isn't like an isolated thing. And so I think it was an aquarium up in Oregon and had originally told them, or maybe Seattle, but they said, hey, you got this cephalopod, this octopus, right? And it's getting out of its enclosure. Because had you ever heard of anything like that? And the people in Corpus were like, yeah, we had it happen here. And it would get into the other enclosure, eat a baby shark, and then go back into its enclosure.
And they're very clever because it's not just about like, opening their cage and heading out. They'll figure out their complicated cage like it's a puzzle. Get out, go into another one, eat something, go back into theirs, close their cage, and act like nothing
it never happened.
So
when they were telling us, that's a very sneaky spider. And so, and I told my wife, and I told him and Zane, my nephew that was with us, and we were telling Anthony about it on the show the other night. It was a live stream, and we were talking about it. And I said, "This is when you hear somebody from an aquarium, museum, aquarium, whatever, tell you that, it makes you think." These things have some serious intelligence. So that would make sense why they would be the ones that to inherit our Earth from us. But then this show went on to talk about, further down the line into the future. And guess what they said? They said that the last last mammals on Earth were going to be these small rat-like beings, they were around during the dinosaur times. Mammals were, but they looked like a possum. So that's all that's left of the mammals will be these little rats, and they will be preyed upon by, guess what? Giant spiders. And that these spiders would be controlling the earth, and eventually they would rule the earth.
If the Bigfoot quit consuming humans, it would eventually, they would revert right back to their original forms.
In history, and this has happened on other planets, bird planets and everything, that they will take the main source or whatever is there, like here, it's called the last man standing. the end game. That's to have everyone consumed, but there'll still be the DNA here because it'll be a man, but it'll have the body of a spider, kind of like a centaur but it'll have the upper body of a man, but it'll have the body of a spider. And they're all going to be eating each other. And after that happens, then it's going to just revert back to a spider. All the spiders are going to eat each other, and then it's just going to end. That's called the end game.
In the Bible, when it talks about the scorpion creatures that'll come out with the
faces of man.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
People think everything's metaphorical, and there's a lot of
there's a lot of stuff that's just literal. Yeah, you're right.
And
it's not all metaphorical.
Even on the Aztec Sunstone, it shows hybrid creature, sharp teeth and everything, that has like a man figure. But at the end game, or the last man standing, there has to be one person to stand for Earth, to have all this knowledge so that you know what you're up against. Has to be a warrior, and this that portal is going to open, and only one can go through to put their mind into the spiritual mind, so that the birth of the man-child, that man-child has all the information, what's going on, how to be a warrior, what he has to do to end everything. I mean, everything good's going to be here, but all the predators will be taken out. But there's the end game that's going to happen, or that's what the bad people want. But they're not looking for the most intelligent person to be that last man standing. They want just a regular country. Yeah, they want that. They want someone who doesn't know.
So they want Ike to be
the last man standing, so they know it's going to be an easy win. This guy doesn't have the information. Is not a warrior. Doesn't understand what has to be done. Mm-hmm. And that's why we teach so much.
That's why they're destroying manly men here now.
Yeah, intentionally.
And all of our trackers have this information. They all have our books. They all have the DVD. We've been teaching them. So it's not going to be the last man standing now. Now it's going to be the last man, or the last
person.
It's going to be a group now. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to expand that by sharing all the information, so that it's not going to be a last individual. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to it, there's going to be, we want millions of people with all this information.
We're all supposed to be warriors.
We all, and we're all interconnected.
Yeah.
One thing that I've tell people all the time, and I just keep banging the drum on this one, we are all one. People don't understand that, and people they take it lightly when you talk about, and I don't want to get all political or sound like I'm virtue signaling, because I'm not, but when people start being divisive based on gender, race, religion, all this other stuff, I'm one of those people that's like, you can learn from anybody and everybody. And I think that once you start putting everybody in this tribalistic camp of I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, then we have problems, because we're closing ourselves off. It's like, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm this race, I'm this religion, I'm this, and that. And that's fine to have that identity. But you also have to be open to listening to what your neighbor is telling you, because we don't all have the information, the knowledge. Like, I had a friend, he grew up Episcopalian, and then years later, I run into him, and he's like going to a Pentecost, and he was trying to get me to go. And I said, well, thank you, but I've been baptized 3 times. Once as a Baptist, once as a Catholic, and in the Pentecost. I said, I've been cleaned, believe me, and he's like, well, it was so much more than just being Episcopalian. While he was talking, I just felt like telling him, well, there's so much more than all the religions can tell you. You know what I mean? Because there is so much more to learn.
And at the same time, they complicate it way too much. Mm-hmm. It's really, really simple.
There was another thing about the 2012, and that's also in the stars, about going into the new time, which is Aquarius, and Pisces to Aquarius. And so when that ending happened, that means also that the change has to happen. And so there was a pope at that time, and the pope is a lifetime position. The pope has to die before a new one can be erected, and they smashed that ring. They reforged that ring for the new pope. They had the smoke, the white or the black, and when the white smoke comes up, then they put that ring on the new pope. But that didn't happen in 2012. There was an old pope, a Pisces pope, who couldn't go into Aquarius. But they raised an Aquarius pope, which was Benedict, I think, or maybe he was the Pisces, and I think his name was Francis, the new one at that time, and he was an Aquarius pope. So now they have to, or the bad people, we call them the Predator 7 families, that they have to change everything over. They have to change their king, their queen, their prince, their princess over, but they did it symbolically. The queen was in Washington. She was wearing Dick Gregory is the one who gave us this information. Not the full information, but what she was wearing and when she did it. But she was wearing a pink outfit, and she had purple mixed in there with it.
And purple's always been considered royal.
And you said the Pope in 2012?
Yeah.
Now it was Pope Benedict.
Benedict, yeah. The one that looked like Palpatine, right?
Yeah, the one that resigned.
Yeah.
So,
looked like what?
Palpatine. He looked like Emperor Palpatine.
But he didn't die,
Yeah, he didn't. He resigned.
He resigned.
And there was and you can't do that.
The last time it happened, I think, was 1415 or something like that.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous.
And there was, so now there's 2 popes. So now they got to change over the king. They got to change over the queen, the prince and princess. So she's in Washington saying that they're going to skip Charles and they're going to erect George as the new king and bypass him. They can't do that, as you would say, legally, but symbolically they can do that.
And why is it that they want to do that?
Whenever they say that they're not going to let Charles be the new king, the only way that can happen is he dies. So what they do is symbolically kill another prince. And at that same time, and so this was April, end of April, there was another prince that died, who in the color of purple, under the cherry moon, which was a pink moss moon. That prince died, which was Prince of the Purple Rain, that artist. So now they have to kill a princess, and they have to kill a queen, and they have to kill a king. And
they already killed Princess Diana. I mean,
well, they had killed Michael Jackson, and so that he was the king of pop. So now they got to kill.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Now they got to kill a princess and a queen. And I was telling some people this at Stand the Rock. This is what you're looking for. This is when we're in this time. This is what's happening. And in one of the rooms, because we all had to share rooms for showers and stuff, and go back to the camp. As people come in with an Esquire magazine, they say, "We don't buy these things, but here you go." And they threw it to me, and I looked at it, and it said Carrie Fisher had passed away, and that
Princess Leia.
And that her mother had died 3 days later, which if she's the princess,
she would be the queen.
She would be the queen. And all that happened in that time.
That was
over.
Her mom was Debbie Reynolds, wasn't it? Yeah, and she was married to not Larry, what's his name? Fisher, Eddie Fisher. He was a famous crooner. What's going on? See you smiling all big. What's happening here?
No, it's just funny.
He's just happy.
You're happy that Princess Leia died?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, yeah, I don't really know. It's whatever. But
I was there for Luke anyway.
He's happy there was a new pope.
I was always kind of a Vader guy, but I always looked at things opposite than when I was a kid, because you know how, like you were saying, the world's upside down, and it has been for a long time, not just symbolically, but I looked at this world as this is the counterfeit. This is the upside down world.
We used to have that picture in our kitchen. It's one of your favorite movies.
Which one? Oh, Gone with the Wind.
My dear, yeah.
Yeah, where Rhett Butler talks about how the world is upside down, my dear, but eventually it'll right itself.
The Bible even says they turn everything upside down.
Upside down. Everything is like inverted. And so, where was I going with this? We're talking about how everything kind of was turned on its ear, right? Which kind of made things not correct. And so then everything that's happening is the opposite backwards. So when I was a kid, and it's something, my good friend Chris Garitani's a filmmaker, and we talked. And I did a 3-hour set with him that came out on the podcast. Very interesting, folks. Go check it out. We talk about all kinds of stuff. But one of the things we talked about was how science fiction movies and horror movies in particular are basically telling you, and it's to them, I say them, and I don't mean tell heads, evil mothers. I'm saying them. It's not an acronym. It's just who they are. I'm not going to get into it, but they have a duty to try to circumvent karma. And that's kind of what they're trying to do, is by saying, oh, well, there's a legality. Them. Yeah. And there's a legality here. So we showed them and then we slaughtered them. Yeah. Cause it's like these movies, like They Live, and me and Garitano kind of got off on these different movies where they have these themes, but it's really telling you what they're doing, you know? And so when I was a child, every time I watched a movie, I'd be sitting there going like, these are the good guys. And I was not impressed. And I was always like, I like the Empire better. You know, it was like, I didn't really like the fact that they had a big Chewbacca dude and they had all these weird looking aliens that looked evil, and they were the good guys, you know. Now, in the end, you see Palpatine, obviously he's like really horrible, bad figure, whatever. But Vader is really like a tragic figure, you know, who was sucked in by the dark side, which can happen to anybody. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, but it's like the movie, though, kind of forces you to like the rebels who, for all intents and purposes, seem to be running around with a bunch of evil-looking beings, you know, whereas the dark side was considered the order.
Yeah, if you look at everything reverse, you would see that the Vader side had the spirituality. Mm-hmm. The rebels had the physical. Mm-hmm. And that's what they want. They want a physical fight. They don't want a spiritual fight. Mm-hmm. They want everyone to be physical. Don't think about spiritual. Don't trust God. Leave God out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even that one scene where Vader says the ability to destroy a planet is insignificant to the power of the Force. Now, I know that Lucas, you know, he was on the same campus where everybody was dropping acid, and Timothy Leary was telling people, tune in, drop in, tune out, or whatever, drop out, talking about taking acid and quitting college is what it was about. And I know that he went to USC as a filmmaker, and there were rumors and stories that he expanded his mind. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard stories. And of course, same thing, Stanley Kubrick, he made these movies and he did all this stuff. Who knows what they were tapping into, you know, but there is a theme there. And then he talks about the Force. And when you're young in the 70s and 80s, I thought it was, you know, it was just a story. But then you start to realize that there is an energy, there is a balance, and there is a force, and you can use it. And we are conduits of good and evil. We have the left-hand path, and then we have the right way. And so when you look at which side you're going to choose, what you're going to take, whatever. It's even Iron Maiden even has a song, and it's based on the Aleister Crowley, the Moon Child. And Crowley's saying, well, this child it's doomed, and the devil's going to take it and win because Crowley was evil. But I mean, when you look at that, if just listen to the lyrics of the song, it talks about how the good or the evil, which path will he take? Both sides trying to manipulate before it's too late. You know, that's what's happening. Each and every one of us is that child the dragon is trying to consume you. He's trying to take you. And I think that the big descendant, the big major player descendant of the spider is the reptilians. I mean, if you stop and you look at it, they run on that back of the brain. It's all instinct and it's all predatory. Anytime you hear about an alien abduction from a reptilian, it is always 100% bad. I've never heard of one where they were like, oh yeah, you know what? Let's just watch a little ESPN. I hear the Astros are playing. No, nobody. There's none of that niceness that people. There are some other ones that people have benevolent, you know, but I don't think of all the cases we've ever covered that the reptilians were ever good at all.
No, one of the game rangers that is harassing the people we were telling you about earlier, when he came to bother the brother again, and the sister saw his eyes change to
slit up.
Yeah, and there's a reason that the Bible says he gives us the power to tread on scorpions and snakes.
And
the scorpions are just another
Arachnid.
Yeah.
And what did the tracker do when she seen the eyes do that?
She rebuked it in the name of Jesus, and it screamed and ran.
Wow.
And jumped in this black SUV and took off.
Reptilians. And then what were you going to say, Tony?
Well, the only good story I think I've heard of reptilians was one that you mentioned in the live where it was two dogmen chasing a reptilian up a tree.
We get those too. Only one. People ask me this question, Jerry and Ella, and I want to say this in front of Tony knows because Tony and me read a ton of stories. And then we've even got our wires crossed and got them because there's some of them are similar.
Yeah,
and
there's
then
two of those in specific that are very
two
similar.
of those. And yeah, you're right. And then so somebody asked me this, and this is a person who's a devout Christian, and I understand that they had a question about this, and I wanted y'all's opinion. They were saying, no, the evil is all on one side, and they all speak with one voice. And I said, I don't believe that. I believe that the Achilles heel of evil is, like you said, they eat each other. The spiders are all going to eat each other. That is, to me.
She thinks they're all on the same team,
on the same
with
team.
each other. Oh, no, they hate each other,
hierarchy.
too.
No. They all want to be the boss. I mean, they eat each other.
It's cutthroat.
Cutthroat, exactly. And I tell people that. I said, dude, demons don't play nicely together. One of the things is big, and a friend of mine, he's from Zanzibar. And he said that one of the things that they do, and this happens in Mexico, in brujeria, all these things they do, these rituals, right? Medicine man. My friend who was a Ute, his grandfather was a medicine man years ago.
I am also.
Yeah, you're a medicine man. So you know this, right? So or you go to curandera or whatever, and somebody says, hey, I got to get this off of you. A lot of times what they're doing is just invoking a bigger, more powerful demon to remove that other demon. Mm-hmm. And that's a bigger predator. So you get the bear to chase the wolf, and the wolf chases the cat.
Perfectly put.
Yeah, and so it's an analogy, but that's what you're doing. And you're trading one sin for another, one bad thing for another, and then you're compromising yourself. So I don't go to curanderas. I don't go to clean, to get none of that stuff. I don't care about the web under my bed. I'm good. I don't want that. I don't want that brujeria on me. But one of the things that I have noticed, and people are so quick to believe in all of this rather than prayer. Like it's like, prayer is there as a secondary. No, prayer should be your first go-to. And then if you get the discernment that you need to do something that God tells you, I need to do this, then you do that. If the Holy Spirit moves you, right? But that's not what's happening. And one of the things I tell people that when this lady, she argued with me, and you know who I'm talking about, she's from Arizona. She argues she's nice. She likes to, she's like, opinions. I was listening to the show, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean, but she always corrects me. But I'm patient with her because then eventually I explain it to her, but it takes, and finally I just said, look, you're just going to have to listen really closely. And so if you're out there, listen, what I'm going to tell you, these dogmen and these Bigfoot and these reptilians, they kill each other on a regular basis. They
cannibalize each other.
They do. They absolutely do.
And that's also why when we have weapons, and we got a lot of people ridiculing us for a while about our weapons. And we said, don't worry about our weapons.
They're for us.
Yeah, that's for us. What I carry out there is what I'm using for me. Mm-hmm. And all of our trackers know it. You carry your own weapon. You carry your own extra ammo because if something breaks out in any kind of war, even in the military, you're going to be fighting or shooting at this guy. This guy's going to be fighting and shooting at that guy. This guy's going to be fighting and shooting at this and whatever. Mm-hmm. But everyone's going to have their own fight.
That's right.
And that's what we train for. We said, now, once we take care of what we got to take care of, then we can help. But every one of us is going to have our own fight. So we all got to be prepared and armored up.
Well, we're trying to get people to train their children up to be warriors too, to prepare for these things. And they're not coming, they're here.
Yeah, and men's hearts are going to fail.
And also if we don't even have to kill a Bigfoot, all we have to do is wound it. All we have to do is make a blood scent for it. And those other ones will come and get
go for it. You're
all
right.
the ones, just like chickens. If one's bleeding, the other ones will keep pecking
at it. They will. Fish do it too.
Yeah.
I have imbunas in my aquarium, and they're cool. But if one of them's messed up, they're like, and they turn on it, and that predator instinct kicks in, and it goes back to what you say. And we feed them fish flakes, so they don't need to do that.
Right.
They do that because
in
everything has a predator instinct, and I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard stories of deer.
Yeah.
Actually eating a dead deer.
That's more common now.
It is so weird.
Horses do it too.
That's crazy.
I've seen horses eating, flesh.
Yeah.
And deer and things like that. So that's a big thing for us, and that's why we carry weapons. That we even talked about. Even you could put like a gun oil behind your ear or on your arm or something.
Mm-hmm. Just so you smell like a firearm.
Yeah, even if you don't have a weapon, you want to smell like a weapon.
Yeah, because they know what that is.
Yeah, and they don't want to be wounded.
You think this is overkill? Because, I mean, this is just me. Personally, when I go, especially after the Devil's Backbone, I use a tank. I drive out there with... I take an
Can
Abrams,
we borrow it?
And people are like, why do you need a tank?
If we had that, we would be rolling out there.
My friends are always like, why do you need a tank to go out there? I'm like, dude, I'm not a big fan of death. I mean, maybe you're into that, but I'm not into dying. No, I don't do that, folks. I just take a chopper. I take an Apache chopper out there, Super Cobra.
When there's a difference between a knower and someone who just kind of knows.
Yeah.
Those knowers who have seen how big these things are, have seen the claws, have seen the teeth, have seen them carrying, other animals like it's nothing. You know that if it's hungry and you're in the area, you're just food. And you're not going to beat it with your hand. You got to have some kind of weapon. You have to have God with you to do this. Which our trackers did, and that's the one that recently killed one back in last September 11th of 2022, which was probably last year's whenever that kill happened. But she's strong with God, and she's had a lot of spiritual happenings. There's some things that she's told us that we can't talk about on air, but we can talk about off air. But she's always been protected, and that's the only way she survived that. But we also say, well, she didn't survive it. She knew what she was doing.
It's not luck. It's skill.
Yeah.
Right.
She knew exactly where to place the bullet, and it only took one shot for her. But the brother didn't know, and he was shooting all over the place. But we always tell everybody that a warrior is not a survivor, and a survivor is not a warrior. We train for this. We don't actively go look for an encounter. We do track and locates for people. We want to help people and deter them from their property. We're not out there to hunt them or just to go out there just to kill them. What we do is we push them off people's areas, and then and that's just like anybody we've helped in the past. We're still going by their homes. And to this day, it's still miles away, but we'll still go in there and spend a couple of days and do some more deterrence and help them out. We'll go home and let them do their thing, and then we'll periodically come back and spend a couple more days and help them out again, because we know it's an upkeep. Once you let your guard down, they're coming back.
Well, that brings up a lot of questions. First question. Let's stick with the Bigfoot for a second. I'm going to ask you another question after that, though.
And we're going to leave you there for tonight because we want you to come back next Thursday for the third and final part of this 3-part discussion with Jerry Williams and lead tracker E, aka Ella. Once again, check out their book on Amazon. The title is Predator Bigfoot and the Spiritual Warrior's Path. Check us out this Friday night for a live stream, this Sunday night for another live stream, next Tuesday for another podcast episode, and like I said, next week, next Thursday, we're going to drop the third part of this discussion. All really cool stuff. We love you all. Don't miss it. We hope to see you all there, and good night.